On Nova Legends podcast, I have one of the greatest coaches I've ever been around, Coach Will Robinson. Coach won two state championships, I believe, at Cumberland, right, Coach? Uh,
Yes.
two state championships at Cumberland. He also took Woodbridge deep into a state tournament. Had a great coaching career in Charlotte. Done some things with the U.S. national team and the junior pool, and working with some NBA players on training kids. Coach, it's great to see you. Thanks for doing this.
Thanks, Julian. It's great being here with you. It's good to see you again after all this time.
Yeah, man, you haven't aged a bit, man. You still look
No,
like you can
not
still
you.
do it out there.
Uh, well, my wife, I think she takes care of me real well. So,
Well, that's what it takes. It takes a village to take care of us sometimes. So just give folks a little bit more detail. You went to high school in Cumberland. I didn't know that you were from Cumberland. My father's family is from Pamplin, Farmville. His cousin Jimmy had a church in Cumberland. You probably knew him. I just never knew you were from Cumberland. I know you coached there. You were a three sport star at Cumberland. Actually had some Major League Baseball interest from high school. Ended up going to Ferrum Junior College, and you had a great career there as well, all
right.
league. And then you went to Mansfield, and you took them to the regionals in basketball. Even played a little football, and I think you had quite a few interceptions as a defensive back playing football at the college level. And then you, as I said before, you coached at Cumberland. And then I met you when you came to Robinson when you were an assistant coach for Bob McKeag and helped lead that team to the state final against Alonzo Mourning before going to Woodbridge and so forth. Coach, did I get most of that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
It's a lot. Well, Coach, you were always a really deep thinker about basketball. We used to love talking about basketball with you. Sit up in the bleachers after we played pickup and talk. I was watching the NCAA tournament this week, and I feel the level of play is about as high as it's ever been. Now, is it as good as the 70s and 80s with Michael Jordan and David Thompson and all those great players? I'm not sure, but with these older players playing with the money that's available and the fact that if you make the NBA, you have European players that are trying to get those jobs. I think the college game has really elevated. Where do you see the college game right now?
I think it's a mixed bag, Julian. I, I think depends on what area you're in regards to how you receive it and whether or not it's pleasing to the eye. Uh, Steph Curry kind of changed the game uh, because of the three-point shooting. And as you can tell now, most of the NBA players have gone from a traditional five man. Uh, so the game has changed in and of itself, largely due part to just the shooting and strategically how people want to play. Certainly the NBA has always been about uh, the more points we can put on the board, the more people we can put in the seats, right?
Yeah.
So I think that allows for uh, the fan base to enjoy the game a little bit more in regards to scoring. But um, I'm not too much sold on it because I'd like to see the ball go inside a lot, not necessarily a lot, but I like to see the post play. Uh, I think most of our kids, I guess most of our kids now who train as post players don't train traditionally. Uh, they train as shooters first almost. So I, I waver in regards to how I receive the game from the professional standpoint at this point.
Hmm. What do you think about the fact that the top seeds have all advanced to the Final Four? I feel like it's harder for upsets. I felt like 4 or 5 years ago, or even 10 years ago, the mid majors can hit the three pointers and get hot. I feel like the big guys do a much better job of guarding the three pointer now. So you're not getting free looks now. So even if you can make that three pointer, they're really making you work. So I think the favorites are really hard to beat.
Yeah, and also, Julian, the NIL has been a factor in all of this as well. You know,
Right.
if I can, if I can, the more money I have, I think the better team I can have.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned earlier, our players now, the college players now, are much older. We're looking at 23 to 25, 26-year-old kids playing against 19-year-olds. And but at with all these top seeds advancing, it is a testament to where we are with NIL and the type of player and the age of the player that can help you excel in your college and at the college level.
Do you think if we move the three-pointer back, that would bring the post players back, or you think the players would just adjust and learn how to shoot from further out?
I thought about that. It's amazing. It's amazing you asked that. I'm not sure. I'm I'm sure it would allow for a lot different a different type of game, especially at the college level, because now there's more room to operate if you're guarding the 3-point line. Uh, More penetrations, maybe more penetrations and kick rather than post play. But but uh, that's an interesting concept.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, coach, you were the best coach I've ever been around teaching dribbles, teaching dribbling, teaching, you know, the jab series, but not just that, the shake moves off the dribble and how to beat your man. You really focused with us on that and really changed my game. But now with the it's not traveling, but with the gather step and the Euro step, uh, the dribbling has changed. Has it changed the way you teach ball handling, the way the new rules are?
Julie and it really doesn't change anything in regards to teaching. I've developed a concept 0 to 3. So we teach kids how to shoot the ball with no dribble, one dribble, two dribbles, and three. And it's the kids who work on ball handling on their own. You've been in the mall or walking down the street with a group of guys, and you see one of the guys just break out in a move with no ball. Those guys actually they play with the basketball an awful lot. But in order to be successful, I think at the high school level, especially, you have to be effective within three dribbles. Uh, Other than that, you get bogged down. Uh, most most plays in a two-man game or one-man game with no probably no more than three dribbles.
Hmm.
So we teach the crossover, we teach the shake, uh, and we try to do it judiciously, get it there as quick as you can, make a play, and that's it. So no, it hasn't changed anything, any way that I teach, and we've been successful with this for years now. We've had a number of kids play at the next level, so uh, no, it hasn't changed anything in regards to how we teach.
Do you support the way they allow I guess the Euro step and the gather step? Do you support those changes to the game?
Absolutely, absolutely. Welcome changes. It's amazing. Sometimes I saw in one of the girls' games, collegiate games the other night, a young lady gathered and stepped through and made what I thought an unbelievable play. And it had not been for that type of exposure, she probably wouldn't have been able to do that. But it being exposed to that type of step and move, certainly welcome to the game.
Yeah. Well, Coach, you grew up in Cumberland, which is an historic area about I guess 50, 60 miles west, maybe a little bit northwest of Richmond. You probably came about soon after the Prince Edward when they closed the schools. Um, you probably just came right after that. What was it like growing up in Cumberland, and how did you get involved in sports?
Well, Julian, we integrated our school seventh grade fully when I was in the seventh grade, and I remember the schools were close in Prince Edward County. I lived on the higher end, the northern end of the county, so I lived closer to Prince Edward County and Farmville, Virginia, than I did to Cumberland High School.
Hmm.
Um, so Prince Edward County, if you remember, Prince Edward County High School was closed for 4 years during that time. And many of those kids either migrated to Buckingham County or Cumberland County who had relatives so they could continue to go to school. Other than that, they had to wait 4 years to get back into school. That experience for me in Cumberland was, to be honest with you, traumatic. And I've done speaking engagements in regards to that over the years. But as I look back over my life, I probably would not have, uh, might not be where I am, maybe without all those experiences.
Hmm.
Uh, Integrating schools at that time was difficult, and to be able to manage yourself as just a person even athletes. Um, it was difficult for athletes as well.
Mm.
And I certainly had my share of difficulties at times, but uh, challenging, extremely challenging. Uh, but I had strong parents, and I'm from a large family, so we had a lot of relatives near us that could support us. So we made it through,
Mm.
but it was challenging.
Did you play ball with white kids growing up?
I did. Uh, I did. Ironically enough, Julia, when I in the black community where I grew up, we didn't play football.
Mm.
So it was baseball. Baseball was the thing, right? So in my experience in football is a true story. I'm in PE class. I think it was ninth grade, and we're playing football, and I was asked to guard this guy who's going to go for a pass, and said, "Don't let him catch a pass." And he's pretty fast, and I was pretty fast, and I run with him, and I intercept the ball, and I keep going the same direction that I intercept the ball. That was my first experience of playing football. Uh, but yeah, we played. My brother, I think, was the first African American quarterback at our high school,
Mm.
and yeah, we grew up playing baseball. Things got better though, Julian, as time went on.
Mm.
But yeah, there was certainly integration across the board in our sports.
Mm. What explains the level of athleticism at Cumberland High School? So, I hear legend of these late 70s teams in Cumberland, how great they were.
Uh,
And that, I don't know, some of the kids came from New York City. I don't know. You hear these urban legends and stuff. But even, when I was in school and I played against Big Rich and Gary Austin, and those guys, and even after when I was refereeing when Dwight was coaching there years later, they
right.
still had great athletes. What explains all the great athletes in Cumberland?
I can't explain it, Julian. In high schools, the talent is cyclical, and at times you have good athletes, and times you don't. Dwayne Dennis, who came from uh,
Mhm.
New York, was the only Jersey actually that's retired in the school.
Mm.
I think there a man by the name of Thomas Brody, who I considered the best guard that I'd ever seen come through uh, Cumberland County, and maybe one of the best guards I've ever seen play basketball. Um,
Mm.
Thought he deserves a little bit more recognition in regards to our school. He's the one who I wanted to model my game after. 6'3", 6'4" guard who could just magician
Mm.
with the basketball. I was a seventh, eighth grader, and I was just in awe of him. And,
Mm.
and but we've had some talented players come through, absolutely. And Mark Stevens, rest his soul, Dwayne and Mark were passed on.
Mm.
But outstanding athletes,
Mm.
unbelievable. Mark was taken off from the free throw line after practice before Dr. J.
Mm.
So it was incredible at times the talent level that we had.
Yeah. I used to love those rivalries when Fluvanna would come to town. I used to love officiating
Oh,
these games. The gym would be sold out before the JV game.
oh
Prince,
yeah.
of course, Prince Edward. There were others. There were so many great Goochland. I love refereeing those games. What were they like when you were playing? Were they the same as 10 years later when I would referee? Just packed house and
The style of play changed. I think I grew up in I don't know what when when we played it was pretty much zone 2-1-2 zone and a little bit of zone press. Uh, Not anything real complicated. Just get the ball up and down the floor, make a few passes, and shoot it. Uh, but the talent level was always there. There was always great talent. The Prince Edward County High School and Cumberland High School were probably the largest rivalries that I've been a part of.
mm,
And Prince Edward had athletes galore. Uh, so the game changed over the years. By the time you were officiating, game had changed quite a bit in the
mhm.
area, and kids are a little bit more knowledgeable about how to play and how to execute different things. When I was a kid, it was just simple, very simple. 2-1-2 zone,
Mm.
uh, press a little bit, shoot it.
Yeah. Coach, who was the first deep thinker about basketball that you had exposure to?
Uh, let me put it this way, Julian. My coaching background was been predicated on the backs of three people: Dean Smith, John Thompson, and Bobby Knight. And Bobby Knight from the passing, the moving, uh, Dean Smith from the overall team play, how to include everyone in your offense
Mm.
and changing defenses, and John Thompson because of the toughness and grittiness defensively that they play with. I remember, Julian, back in the day, Mike Riley, who was Coach Thompson's assistant at Georgetown, and I became friends over the years. And, back in the day when people make a mistake, they would go, my bad, my bad. So I called Mike and I asked him, I never see a Georgetown player do that. I said, and asked him why. He said, because we talk to our kids about that and we don't have time to wallow in your mistake when the game is still going on. So let's move on to the next thing. So it's all these little nuggets that you would pick up from different coaches, but those three, they were big when I was coming up. They were the big guys. Uh,
Yeah.
but Bobby Knight was certainly instrumental in teaching of movement without the ball, and then Dean Smith, the overall team play, and John Thompson with that grittiness defensively.
Yeah. What about players that you modeled after? You mentioned the player from Cumberland, but what about pro players like a Walt Frazier? Were there pro players that inspired you and made you want to play better?
Ironically enough, you mentioned the guy, Juan Frazier.
Yeah, that's who you reminded me of.
So,
Yeah.
Julian, you never saw me in college, but I wore sideburns like Walt Frazier. I wore number 10 because of Walt Frazier.
Yeah.
And I tried to model my game after him and trying to be cool and collective under pressure, you know. But yeah, Walt Frazier was my guy.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
He was my guy. It's funny. I figured that about you, but I read his book. He wrote an autobiography relatively early.
Right.
Maybe right after his playing career, um, and he was talking about how when he'd watch the ball player, he'd watch the guy he's guarding dribble, and as soon
Right.
as the ball left his hand, you have
That's
like a
right.
second and a half before it reached again, and that's when
Right.
you go for a steal. I learned. You remember I used to submarine. That's where I
That's
learned from
right.
with Walt Frazier,
Exactly.
reading that book. Uh, I never had his style for clothes, but I did try to play for him. So, Coach, how meaningful was your experience at Ferrum, going to junior college, getting away from home, and focusing on sports and academics?
Ironically enough, Julian, coming out of high school, I felt challenged. I didn't feel like I could make it in college.
Mhm.
I had a guidance counselor that brought me in and sat me down and told me that I had the ability to do this. Yeah. And so I began looking at colleges when I was a junior. And so she suggested, well, maybe you might want to go to a junior college first. And it's a smaller environment. And just so happened, Coach Wilson uh, from Buckingham County High School was a friend of my dad. And I think Coach Wilson helped helped me get to Ferrum. He made a couple of phone calls, and next thing you know, I was getting phone calls from Coach at Ferrum, and from there, I decided to go, and the best thing that ever happened to me. Small environment, uh, Methodist Teachers College, and in a very picturesque setting in Virginia, in Rocky Mount, and athletes galore. Our football team had, if I remember correctly, Julian, we had 32 All Americans, 25 All Staters. My roommate, Mike Gregory, I think ended up going to Ohio State. But there were major college coaches on our campus every day. The school was flooded with athletes from all over the country. And we're fortunate enough we had an outstanding basketball team and was able to go on from there. But I learned how to play. I got a friend of mine actually just visited me not too long ago. His name was Ronnie McCray. Ronnie was all city player of the year in the state in Pennsylvania, and he was on our team, 5'9".
Mm,
and probably one of the brightest and most intelligent basketball players I've ever been around.
mm,
So he started. I played an awful lot as a six man, um, but I learned a lot from Ronnie. In
mm,
fact, I shared that with him when he came to visit me not too long ago.
mm.
Uh, an unbelievable basketball player with the smallest hands. He couldn't palm a volleyball, uh, but great IQ. Uh, I would be mesmerized by him. So we became good. There were a lot of players, a lot of talent at our school, and kids went on to major colleges and do some really good things.
Yeah. So you went from, I believe you said six man, and how did you get the opportunity to go to Mansfield?
I started my sophomore year because Ronnie left.
Mhm.
Had a really good year. Wasn't sure what I was going to do. I didn't think I was a big time college basketball player. I wasn't, that kind of guy. I wasn't, I knew that I wanted to play. And coach called me in and said, that he's getting letters from this school, that school, that school. Uh, so I wanted to go away from home. I wanted to go up north. Uh, and so I ended up in Coach Wilson contacted me from Mansfield and said that he'd like for me to come in. He'd watch some film. He talked to some people. So I went in and I did a workout with him, and he said, "You're my guard."
Mm.
So I ended up going to Mansfield. Reggie Cox and I both Reggie and I are really close today, still close friends. Uh, we both transferred in. He came in from Tyler Junior College, and I came in from Ferrum. And next thing you know, we're in the NCAA tournament. So
Wow.
we had a great time.
Yeah. By the time I met you about 10 years later, maybe 8 years later, you were a very good shooter. I mean, you would knock down that shot consistently. You're a great ball handler. Had your game changed between college and then, or is that the way you played in college?
No, I didn't play that way in college. I could shoot the basketball, but Stan Mahan was the two guard on our team, was an unbelievable player. We had an outstanding team, Julian. We could have won the national championship uh, had not one of our players gotten sick and got hurt my second year. But I distribute the ball more than anything. There are times when I had my night, but for the most part, uh, I was a pressure defensive guard. I could beat people off the dribble and get the ball. Back then we had post players, so
Mhm.
so, so we had a 6'8" guy, Joey Balasic, and Terry Stevens was 6'7" on the wing. Reggie was 6'6", 6'5", could jump out of the building, and Stan was just an unbelievable guard. So I had enough people that I had to make happy,
Yeah.
uh, and I was fine with that. I don't, I was never. I knew I could score, and when it came time, like the NCAA regionals, I had one of the best games of my life because I had to score.
Mhm.
Uh, but uh, yeah, I still can shoot. I can't wiggle anymore, but I can shoot a little bit. So.
Yeah, the ball used to come out of your hand so clean. I remember how you used to shoot it. It would come out of those fingertips perfectly. Every time, I always wish I could shoot like you. It may have been different for me. So Coach, when did you first realize you wanted to become a coach yourself?
I didn't. I never thought about coaching until my college coach, God rest his soul, Coach Wilson, brought me in and said to me, he asked me what were my plans after college, and I said I'm not sure. And he said I think you should coach. I played football, and I think you mentioned I played football. I was asked to play. I was getting ready to graduate, and I was called in and asked by the Coach Sable. He said, "I know you have some football background. We'd like to offer you an opportunity to play football, and we will, if you take a course here or there, we'll take care of you, and then you can work with the basketball team after the football season's over if you like." So the basketball coach and football coach were sitting at the table, and they're offering me this opportunity. And I'm still the team. I'm not really ready to leave college at that time. So I took them up on the offer. And then when it was over, coach brought me in and he said, "You should coach." Uh,
Mm.
so when I came home, my high school coach, Coach Johnson, um, so I owe a great deal of credit to, uh, called me and said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm not sure." He said, "Do you have a teacher certificate?" I said, "No, I don't." So I sent him my resume, and he called back and he said, "You need two courses to be certified as a teacher, but we can hire you on a probationary status, and you have 2 years to take those two courses."
Hmm.
I'm taking it, you know. So that's how I got into it. Coach Johnson opened the door for me um, as an assistant to him. He allowed me free reign to coach the team.
Hmm.
Offense, he did most of the defense. I did all the offense, um, and we kind of partnered in that way. So I got a chance at a very young age to have authority over a team and learn how to, as a coach, through mistakes and what have you, to navigate personalities and implement ideas. So Coach Johnson, I give an awful lot of credit for allowing me to do that and getting me started.
Yeah. You and McKay had that in common. You stayed in next year and played football. His didn't work out so well. He got hurt in preseason. I don't think he ever gotten into a game, but he definitely was big enough. So Coach, how did you get back home to Cumberland?
Uh, so you mean when I left college because it was
Yeah, you started coaching back in Cumberland. So how did you get from college to Cumberland?
when I came home and coach again. Coach called me and asked me did I.
Oh, that was at Cumberland, Coach Johnson.
That was at Cumberland.
Okay,
And
I
then
thought
I
that was
ended
your.
up, yeah.
Yeah,
Then I left and came back. And
let's get back. Yeah, I think for a while you told me you were working in Charlottesville, but that might have been just for summer times. Is that right?
and I actually I'll be assistant coach at Alma High School
That's right.
in
Okay.
Charlottesville, and then came back to Cumberland as a head coach.
Right.
Uh, After leaving there for about 2 or 3 years, I think I was gone. Uh,
Who'd you work for at Albemarle?
Rich Lyons.
You're for okay, Coach Long. He coached us in that team camp at the time you guys beat us. He was our coach. He
That's
was a
right.
great coach.
Unbelievable. The best matchup zone coach ever.
Yeah.
Actually I had Coach Lyons come to uh, Woodbridge High School and implement the matchup zone with my team.
Well,
I
yeah.
took a step back. I let the I let the guru do it, you know, and I learned an awful lot from Rich in regards to the matchup zone. That's for sure.
Yeah, I was interviewing somebody, and Coach Lyons was a coach at Stewart for a couple of years in the mid '70s. I had no
That's right.
idea that he
Yeah,
coached there. Yeah, it's crazy. He's really been a trailblazer. He's been at Page. I think it was at Page County or Luray, and
Lorraine.
he coached at West Virginia. I believe the guy has done some incredible things. So when you became head coach at Cumberland, did you know exactly what kind of head coach you wanted to be? By the time I met you, and then as I saw you evolved, and you were always a consistent winner. You definitely had your own coaching style. Did it take a while for you to get there, or did you pretty much hit the ground running at Cumberland?
No, it did take me a while to some changes in regards to how I wanted to coach. Um, when we were there and Dwayne and Mark and we had that team with my brother. I don't know if you know, my brother was a point guard on that team
Oh, well.
that won the back-to-back state championships.
It was Mark Robinson, right?
Ivan.
Okay. Yeah.
So we were primarily a 1-3-1 combination defense at that time with a lot of changes. And in fact, I implemented it here in Charlotte when I came just to play against Ishmael Smith. So uh, over the years, I became more of a man-to-man guy. And when I came back to Cumberland, we were straight man-to-man. We were pressure denying all over the court. Um, that so there was an evolution of my philosophy about how to play. I wanted to be an aggressive type coach whose kids weren't afraid to make mistakes and just play hard.
Hmm.
So that's what we tried to do.
Hmm. What did it mean to you to win your first state championship? I know we used to talk about this. I believe you didn't win your first until after we had met. I think you won it the next year. I'm not sure about that. But what did it mean to you to win a state championship?
Now we won state championship. Now, that, for the record, I didn't win the state championship. I was part of the state championship.
Right, exactly. That's
So
how I remember it.
we were super talented. In fact, with Mark and we have We have dunk contests after practice with that team. Literally, I would sit on the side and say, let me see you guys go at it.
Mhm.
So being single A school, there's only 94 single A schools in the state at that particular time. You got to see the cream of the crop during the regionals. And usually those teams are going to be back time and time again. Um, so we pretty much blazed through the first state championship because of super athleticism and trapping and running and intimidation at times because of our dunking ability and block shots. Uh, and then we had everybody back.
Yeah.
So I was bold enough to tell everybody, just go ahead and make arrangements for state championship next year.
Yeah.
I mean, and to be honest with you, Julian, the second one was anticlimactic.
But that was your first as head coach, though, right, Coach? That was
Yeah, no, no.
you
We
won.
lost.
Okay, I got it.
I lost as a head coach. We lost in the state semifinals.
Mhm.
Uh, and lost in the state finals, I think it was. We beat Drury Mason and somebody else, I forget who it was. And that's when I left.
Mhm.
I left the team that was Gary and that group. I left that group knowing very well that they would win the state championship the following year. And they did.
That's
I
right.
was there to watch it.
Under
Yeah.
Coach Cosby, right?
Yeah, Gary Cosby, absolutely.
Yeah. That was a great time for big programs in the single and double A because you had Drury Mason and you guys completely dominated single A, and then in double A it was Martinsville and Robert E. Lee Stanton.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
and those programs were always at the state tournament, always in the semifinals.
Yeah. Kevin Madden was a big guy at Rivalry. So Kevin and I are friends because we worked the Carolina camp together every year. So
He's coaching back. He's coaching back at Stanton High School now, right?
yeah, he's coaching. Yeah,
Yeah.
sure is.
And then Drury Mason had Tim Martin, who played at
The
UVA.
big boy. Yeah, the big guy. You
Yeah.
know, our
Yeah.
first encounter with someone that size.
Yeah, yeah, that was great. They were stacked. They had a guy named Eric Harrison who played football at Tech, and they had a guard named Ronnie Price that I played at UVA with. He was a great, great shooter. I think they had another guy who was a good shooter as well. But I mean, all that Martinsville area, there was Drury Mason, there was Carver. I mean, all those teams down there were so talented. I interviewed a guy from Martinsville, class of '66, and it was just amazing hearing about the evolution of that area. Now, Coach, talk about the big decision that you made to come to Robinson. Now, I was class of '84. You came up and worked our team camp the summer of '83, '84. After our team camp, you came up and worked our Robinson camp and got a chance to know you really well. And then you went back to Cumberland that year. And I think that was the year you mentioned you guys lost in the semifinals or the regionals, whatever. And then you decided to come to Robinson. We had a great group of young guards, and Coach McKegg, my coach, one of the funniest human beings alive,
Right.
recruited you to come up there and help him get those guards and take the team to the next level.
Well, Bob contacted me. I think the year before, and he said to me, "You should come and coach at the highest level. You should come. You should coach the triple A level." He said he thought that I would be a tremendous coach at that level. I hadn't thought about it, to be honest with you, until he planted that seed. And I gave thought to it. And finally, after a few phone calls and discussions, I decided to make the move. He said to come and join him. Actually, Bob said, listen, if you come and work with me for a year, I promise you, you'll probably have a head coaching job next year.
Mm.
It didn't work out exactly that way, but um, I decided let's do it. Let's go to Northern Virginia where the big lights are, and get out of the country and see what can happen. And fortunately, I had you guys, uh, great group of young men whom I cherish today. Uh, Mike, Sean, I mean, Bob allowed me to coach and to work with the guards for the most part. And I thought that with the talent level that we have in you guys, that we could be disruptive and create opportunities for us to score and to allow you some freedom to score. So uh, I just tried to do my part and help. And of course, I'll be honest with you, Chris was like I just couldn't believe Chris. You know, his size. Uh, and Julian, if correct me if I'm wrong, Chris was when we ran sprints. Chris was always number one in sprints, even though he didn't look like he could run.
Yeah, he was just like he was loafing. He was just, yeah.
That's why I guess his nickname was Smooth, right? So,
Smooth. That's right. Yeah.
but yeah, I enjoyed that. Bob gave me an opportunity, and I thank God for that. And uh, it was just it was surreal.
How do you explain Coach McKegg's success? I have my own ideas. I played for him, but what do you attribute Coach McKegg's success to?
I thought he was a great communicator.
Mhm.
I think Bob was one of the better communicators I've ever been around in regards to coaching. Uh, there's no wiggle room with him. You know, he's very matter of fact, but in a very humble way. Uh, I think it's easy to receive his instruction. I thought he was very plain and simple, but at the same time, uh, he has this. I don't know what word I can attach to it. Uh, he had this ability to communicate so effectively. It was easy for kids to be able to execute whatever it is he wanted done. And then, of course, he had a humorous side to him that I really liked too. So,
Yeah.
but great communicator, tremendous communicator, and teacher.
Was it a big adjustment for you, the people of Northern Virginia, coming from a southern a town or a county like Cumberland and coming to a big, rich county like Fairfax?
No,
Hmm.
no, I've always been a people person, so no, it wasn't. I think the only adjustment I had to make, Julian, to be honest with you, was the size of the schools.
Yeah.
Like Robinson's gymnasium, you know, I was like, you know, actually, I think that that became an issue for me as I continued my career. Uh, Having coached at Robinson and then coaching anywhere else,
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about a small arena. I mean, you know, what did you
Yeah.
see, 5,000? What's
Yeah. I think
yeah,
5,500. Yeah.
5,000.
Yeah.
Uh, so that was the experience. No, I didn't have any trouble adjusting to Northern Virginia at all.
Yeah. Coach, what do you think about Hubert Davis? Now, Robinson and Lake Braddock had a tremendous rivalry. There was a famous, I think, 6-7 overtime game when Lake Braddock beat that Robinson team. That was a junior year. No, that was a senior year. That was the year they went to state, I believe. But anyway, what are your memories of Hubert Davis? Obviously, now the coach at UNC.
Well, actually, Hubert and I've been together. He asked Hubert to come and do a clinic here in Charlotte with me uh, last fall. Um, and of course, I've been working Carolina's basketball camp for over 20 years.
Mm.
So we've had that discussion where he hit the three from the corner to beat us at Robinson. Uh, uh, but his story, I think, should be told in regards to him getting to Carolina. That was the thing. That was, you know, because initially they told him they weren't going to offer him a scholarship,
Mm.
and they gave him an opportunity, and now he's the second all-time leading three-point percentage shooter in NBA history. So,
Oh,
uh,
is that right?
yes, behind Steve Kerr, I think.
I had no
Um,
idea. Yeah, he was
but
always so underrated.
yeah, he could shoot the basketball, you know, and that's one thing. And I didn't, you know, I didn't realize Hubert is as big as he is. He's a pretty big guy.
Yeah.
So, uh, great guy. Uh, wish him nothing but the best.
Yeah.
And it was we were real humbled that he accepted my invitation to come here to Charlotte to do a clinic, and we had a great time. So
Well, that's wonderful, Coach. Well, Coach, let's talk a little bit about your run. So Sean Johnson and Mike McDaniel, Kevin Dennis, Tommy Martin, Paul Bushman, John Lon, just a great team. And but they'd been around for a couple years, and it's almost like the team had plateaued. Well, their senior year, they finally put the run together, and they got to the state tournament. I think they beat WNL with Crawford Palmer in the regional semifinals, and they got to states. And they beat Heritage, I believe, in Denby, and they get to
right,
the state final against Indian River. Now, Northern Virginia teams, as you know, always would hold the ball at state. Don McCool had held the ball in 1979 and beat that great Petersburg team with Mark West. So he had convinced everybody that that was the only way a Northern Virginia team can win down there is to hold the ball. And Coach McKeag said, "No, we're going to play with these guys." And
Right.
you guys went toe to toe with Indian River, and it was a 1 point game with a couple minutes to go. Tell us your memories about that game.
I don't have an awful lot of memories other than Alonzo blocking the shots, but
Yeah,
uh, I don't have a lot of memories about that game, Julian. What I remember is how tough our guards played.
yeah,
You know, and the maturity level over the course of the season, how they've grown from day one to in one season. Sean is now commanding the team. He's understanding how to lead. Mike has now accepted his responsibility as being the dog. So so, so we we had a good group of kids that accepted roles and played extremely hard. Um, so it was not surprising. We were undersized for the most part,
yeah.
but we played smart and we played hard. And I give Sean a lot of credit. He grew as a player because he was uh, he didn't have a great handle. When I say handle, he didn't have a great hold on the game itself initially. But throughout the course of the year, he began his IQ developed more and more. And all we needed Mike to do is just play his butt off, just
Yeah.
play. you know, Mike had no fear. So uh, it was fun. That was a great time. I will always cherish the time in Northern Virginia with Robinson. The game that sticks out most to me, though, Julian, is the game at Woodson, or game against Woodson, which Bartoloni and Kimball, the two big guards,
And
played.
George, what was the big guy's name?
I
George,
forget his name,
yeah,
but how Red Jenkins had to have one of his forwards bring the ball up because Sean and Mike would not let his guards bring. I mean, they dominated the game defensively, and then at our place uh, at halftime we gave Chris got an earful because he wasn't playing real hard. And he came out and just destroyed them at Robinson. The Woodson Robinson game is the games I'll remember for the rest of my life
yeah.
because of how in one of those games the guards just dominated, and the other one Chris dominated. So yeah,
Sean used to play the video of him shaking Kimball and Kimball almost falling down.
right,
He played over and over again. We just laughed. Sean was one of the best defensive players I'd ever seen. He had these long arms. He could move laterally really fast. He defended a lot like Tommy Amaker. He's that level of defender. Him and Mike together are just a great defensive pair. And I tell you, Paul Bushman was an underrated, kind of awkward looking big guy,
exactly, yeah,
but
strong,
he was very deceptively good. You know,
very effective,
he really was. And you mentioned Sean learning uh, his game IQ. His dad wanted him to be a scorer. Mr.
right.
Johnson wanted Sean to be the man, and it was important for you guys that convinced Sean that he had to be the point guard because you had other roles in that team, and you guys you got it done. Let's talk a little bit about deciding to go to George Mason and coaching with Coach Jim Lewis and coaching women. And I know that's something that you still enjoy to this day, coaching the female game.
Had never met Coach Lewis.
Mhm.
I didn't even know where George Mason University was
Mhm.
at the time. And I didn't realize it was that close to Robinson High School for sure. But um, if I remember correctly, Bob said that there was a guy that wanted to speak with me, and it was Coach Lewis. And I'm to this day, Julian, and I'm gonna have to call Coach. I don't know what prompted him to offer me the job. I was intrigued because it was at the college level. I had coached some high school. I had coached a year of girls at Cumberland. Uh, so because the girls played in the fall and the boys played in the
Oh,
winter,
that's
so
right. Yeah.
I had an opportunity to coach the girls.
Yeah.
as well as the boys at the same school. Uh, but I was intrigued by the idea. I'm a young guy. It's college basketball. Jim made it very appealing, and I decided just to take the job to do something different. You know, um, uh, Basically because it was at the collegiate level. Um, so uh, my experience there was unbelievable. Uh, Coach Lewis is, I don't think I've met anyone quite like him. I don't know anyone that knows as many people around the country as Coach Lewis. There is nowhere I could recruit that people that he didn't know someone. Uh, I think if I had to describe Jim Bissett, he was the professional. He was one of the most professional men that I've been around in terms of his decorum and how he conducted himself, and uh, even in his recruitment, he had this ability to kind of he had this personality in his conversation with the young ladies or the parents to kind of just pull them in, and I admired that. I was learning as I observed because I had to learn how to recruit. Uh, but he was coach was just he was incredible. Um, I learned an awful lot from him. Uh, I learned to be patient from him. Uh, uh, I learned that you can't dwell on every single mistake that happens. You have to just continue to move on and press on. And he was very good at that as a coach, that he would continue to move on throughout the course of the game and not get bogged down with this or that. Uh, and then I think one of the things that I learned from him was that you have to make sure that your best player is involved in the game for the most part to win, right? Um, while I was being this team guy, team guy, team guy, team guy, there are times in the game where you need to focus on the player that could get you the win. And he helped me with that tremendously. Cindy Baruch, we had Cindy Baruch at that time was really, really good. And coach showed me when he focused on getting her the ball and doing things with her because she was the best player, we were able to be successful. And I had to step back and take a look at that. And I was like, okay, I can put that in my notebook, right?
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, that was a great time, great time. And then from there, I went to Woodbridge High School.
So were you excited to get a head job at a AAA school?
Yeah, I was ready to be back to be a head coach again. I was excited uh, uh, at one of the largest schools in the state. Uh, and Tom Gall, the principal there, was just an unbelievable person. Uh, Don Brown, the athletic director, they both, had me come down and sit and talk with them. And, the team wasn't really good when we first got there, but we did make some headway. And then I think in our second year and stuff, we started to roll a little bit and ended up having pretty decent seasons at Woodbridge, some good runs.
Well, you had the legendary Don McCool on your staff. It's always found us interesting that these coaches have these dominating coaches on their bench because I would think that'd be a little intimidating. But like Coach McKay had you, a great basketball mind, and you see this everywhere. What was it like to have McCool on your staff, and what did you learn from Coach McCool?
Well, my first, I knew about Coach McCool when I came to Northern Virginia because he had done all this damage when he was at Mount Vernon, and we actually Robinson went to Mount Vernon to play them, and we beat them with Sean and Mike going crazy defensively on them. And Coach McCool, I had given tremendous respect for being one of the best defensive coaches ever. But yet we beat the defensive guru with defense.
Yeah.
And that I'll never forget. And he said, he made a compliment after the game. But I got a call one day and out of the blue, and it was him. And he said, "Hey, look, I'd like to come and join your staff."
Wow.
And I'm thinking, Julian, I'm holding the phone. I'm like, "Is this Coach McCool?"
That was a
So
joke.
I said, let's sit and talk about it, and we made it happen. But I started to get a lot of buzz around it, like how are those two guys going to coach together? They're both alphas, and you know, the whole deal. And what made it so work so well is that we had the same sort of philosophy: defense, defense, defense. And we had some and we had to tweak some things as we went along. I got to know Coach really, really well with him being our staff, and uh, I learned a little bit more about pressure defense because his style was a little bit different and unusual of anyone's I've ever met uh, in terms of how to play pressure defense. Uh, but he was a tremendous asset. Um, I've always wanted people on my staff that would not be yes men. Uh, I didn't want to have anybody on my staff that didn't want to, other than Coach McCool, that been a head coach, but I didn't want anybody on my staff that didn't desire to be a head coach, and I didn't want anybody on my staff to be a yes man. So we had, Julian, you won't believe, we had tons of arguments. So Coach McCool, I'll give you a Coach McCool story. He and Huck were my assistants, Dave Huckstein. Uh, we're sitting after school one day, and I wanted to start this kid. Uh, he's been starting, but he hadn't been shooting the ball very well. And Coach says, "Why are you starting him?" You know, and I'm like, "I see he's our best 3-point shooter." Well, he's shooting like 25%. So finally, Julian, we're debating back and forth, which is always encourage that. Finally, I said, "Listen, if you guys don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. I don't want to hear anymore." And I went home. And I got home, and my wife asked, she said, she could see something was terribly wrong with me. She said, "What's wrong?" I said, "We just had an argument about, one of his kids." Uh, and she said, "Well, what's the problem?" I said, "The problem, they were right." So, so we ended up not starting the kid, and our season began to take off a little bit more, and we used him in a different role. But it was tremendous having. You couldn't imagine sitting down having conversations about how the game plan with a guy of Coach McCool's stature. Uh, it's his experience. Uh, and we fed off of one another. We had a great time together, great runs together. We lost to JJ Redick in the state tournament. We lost to Allen Iverson in the state tournament. We had our chance to beat Allen Iverson, at that time, but we had some really good runs, and I'll cherish those days forever.
Yeah. Well, one of the biggest best teams you had, at least in terms of chemistry, and what you accomplished, was the 92 team that you mentioned that lost to Bethel in the state semifinals. You led in that game really late. Sorry to bring it back up, but you had a great upset of Joey Beard and a very tall and dominant South Lakes team. And you guys came to Robinson, and I was at that game, and I think they were clear favorites to beat you guys. And some of your players said that the South Lakes guys didn't give them the proper respect, and we still talk about that on Facebook sometimes. But you were able to pull what some would say was an upset.
Yeah, let me just say this about that team. So Damian went on to Bowie State. Jason went on to play at Morgan State. Breon went on to start as a freshman at Old Dominion University. Uh, and Spencer actually still is an English teacher in France now, I think. 6'4", 6'5". And then Marcus was starting forward at 6'2", 165, 70 pounds. Is the only kid I think that's ever had a quadruple double in our school. He had 14 steals, 14 assists, 14 rebounds. Uh, 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 and 14 points. Uh, and he could jump like that high. But that team was not afraid of anyone. Damian Keys was the key to the success of that game. Damian Keys could play 1 through 5. And at that time, Damian was 6'4", 215, kind of. So our game plan was to not play in the post at all, Damian, and Joey Beard has to guard him on the perimeter. Uh, and Damian was our focus from an offensive standpoint. So we wanted to attack Joey Beard away from the basket, and my wife still thinks that's the best game she's ever seen in her life. But Damien had 30 points that day, and we were able to upset them. Yeah, I would think. You talking about a McDonald's All American. In 6'11", 6'10", like 6'11", and a pretty good basketball team. Wyndham had a really good basketball team, but I thought we did a great job of trying to execute what we wanted to do and what we thought we could do to win. And
Yeah, Coach, you mentioned Joey Beard. Joey Beard is the only second team parade All American in the history of Northern Virginia. Even Grant was third team. So
oh
I think
wow,
people forget how highly rated Joey was. Because he didn't have a great career at Duke. He did play well, I think, at Vermont or wherever he went, and he
right.
had a great career. Made a lot of money over in Europe, but he doesn't get the credit for the high school player that he was. So the fact that you guys beat him, that was a huge win. But we were talking about the Iverson game, and I went down there to watch you play. I was so proud of you, and it was a strange team, that Bethel team, because Tony Rutland was also a very good ACC player. He had a great ACC career alongside of AI, but they didn't have a great supporting cast. And I don't remember exactly what you did, but you guys made it very hard for Iverson and Rutland to attack. You guys were going to make the other three players beat you at all costs. But that's all I remember about. But what do you remember about the game plan when you were playing Bethel that day?
Othell Wilson played at Virginia, right?
Yeah,
So Othell's brother was on my staff, Mike.
Mike.
So we had Othell come in and be Allen Iverson
Mhm.
in our practice and preparation. Okay, I had not seen Allen play because I sent my assistants to scout that game while I went to GW, I think it was, to scout. And I get a call that night on the way back late, said, Coach, we got a problem. And I'm like, I'm like, they said, Coach, the kid he's fantastic. So I called a friend of mine in northern in the Chesapeake area, and he told me a little bit more about him. So we brought in Othell to try to beat Allen Iverson. Now Allen averaged 32 points a game, and Tony Rutland averaged 22 points a game. The national high school average for high school basketball is 55 points. Those two are averaging 54 together. So we had to come up with some sort of scheme. So we took 3 days, and each day we went boxing one with Othell. We went home, said that's not going to work. We went triangling two. The next day in practice, we said that's not going to work. So I had this epiphany. I said, you know what? I'm going to try it. We're going to put two people on Allen Iverson, and we're going to face guard Tony Rutland. Not going to help off of him at all. We're not going to trap Allen, but we're going to contain him with the 6'4" kid, Spencer, and Breon, who ended up the Division I play. Um, no trap, just contain. Just don't let him, have his way. We were really successful at it, and we played a two-man zone with the other two kids. And we said, if these two guys averaging 55, 54 points a game, that means these other kids aren't used to shooting the basketball in the game at all. So we're going to make them shoot it in the biggest game of the year. And I thought in the first half, we went in the locker room, we were up 11 and, got a nice round of applause as we left the floor because I don't think they had been down all year. And we thought we had something going on. But in the second half, when we got in a little bit of foul trouble, we started missing our front end of 1-on-1s. That allowed to come back. And Allen, in his incredible way, with less than 12 seconds to go, brings the ball across half court with two guys on him, and he pulls up 2 steps over half court and he lets it fly and ties the ball game. And I'm yelling to our point guard, Breon, to take it to the basket. He takes it all the way. If you remember, he gets fouled with no time on the clock. I'm excited because I got an 80-some% free throw shooter going to the line, but he doesn't get up. And the trainer runs out on the court, and I'm yelling, Debbie, no, no, no. And Breon looks at me, he says, no, no. He has a cramp. Of course, he has to leave the game. We put a sub in, missed both free throws, and they beat us in overtime.
Mm.
But, that's life. but it was great. I thought we had done what we could possibly do. They had a kid come off the bench and hit a couple of big shots,
Yeah.
I think, in the fourth quarter. Uh, I don't know his name or anything, but uh, we had Tony on the Raps, and we had Allen. Allen finished with 21, I think, that game,
Mm.
but he took a lot of shots. So
He did.
even with two people on,
Hey, coach, the kid who came in, was he a good foul throw shooter? Because you could choose anybody. Was he a good shooter? The kid that missed it too?
of course, we didn't play that many kids during that game. We had a really short bench for that game. Uh, yeah, in practice, he's the best free throws, and he had made free throws for us in other games.
Yeah.
And I asked, who wants to go make a free throw for us to win the game, and so and Barry was. I felt bad for him because he didn't play anymore after that.
Mhm.
And but he did go on to be a star catcher at I think it was Virginia Tech, and I think he played. Barry went on to play, I think, some Major League Baseball. I mean, the reason Barry is playing basketball because I made a deal with him that he could go to the batting cage to bat at the last part of basketball practice because he could really shoot the basketball.
Yeah.
But what a great kid, and I had some great kids. In fact, Tim Fuller was on that team. He was a freshman on that team, and Tim went on to play at Wake Forest.
Yeah.
And that group. Uh, but yeah, I see AI. He lives here in Charlotte, so so I can't get around that memory.
Yeah. Yeah, well, great. At least the kid volunteered, and great. I'm glad he had a great uh, baseball career. But it is something. When I saw Iverson that day, that was the first. I had seen him refereed his games at AAU growing up, and I was at Charlottesville, so I knew who he was. He was very little when he was young, and he by then he had grown a little bit. But it's funny how when you see the great ones, you know it. I mean, I remember that game. They were down 8 with under 2 minutes to go, and I was like, Woodbridge has them. And he just refused to lose. And you see that greatness. And it's one I once saw Dennis Scott do something that nature in high school as well. And
Right.
the great ones, can do that. So coach, so you end up coming back to Charlotte after having a great run of success at Woodbridge. And do you think, looking back at your career, you could have been one of these coaches that spent 30 years, 40 years at Cumberland and retired at Cumberland with 10 state championships and just been, top dog in a small market? Or did you need to get out and have all these other experiences that you've had?
Well, you know what? I wasn't. Bob actually began help. Coach McKay helped begin that thought process for me of adventuring out and testing the waters as a coach at a higher level. Um, I hadn't thought about it, you know. I had we had a great team. I left Cumberland with the team that was going to win the state championship, right? Uh, so I wanted to challenge. Bob actually planted the seed for me to begin thinking about coaching at a higher level, and even maybe coaching at the collegiate level, right? Um, so that's how that thought process was born. It was born through a conversation with coming to Robinson High School, uh, and obviously I've been blessed to be able to do a lot of things as a result over the course of the years. But I never gave it any thought, Julian, until that conversation with Bob about coming to Robinson.
Hmm.
I was content with just coaching and having fun, and we were, of course, I was having a lot of fun. We were winning, you know,
Mhm.
but I think that I'm sure the conversation I had with Bob had everything to do with me uh, rethinking what I wanted to do in regards to coaching.
Yeah. Well, I want to get to Charlotte, but before I get there, I did forget to ask you one question. Did you enjoy the rivalry, um, Kendall Hayes and Coach Gray? I forgot what's Coach Gray's first name again, Coach
Andy,
Andy Gray. Yeah, great guy. Did you enjoy? I mean, you three guys had so many athletes and so many battles. It was, and unlike the northern region where we had like 24 schools, we had this great regional tournament. You guys had this like mini region, and Hilton was eventually built, and it was growing. But those three schools were just incredibly talented teams with great coaches. Did you enjoy that rivalry?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, you're talking about packed house, can't get in there. I mean, we're talking about the girls at that time, with Charlita Beal and Rachel Hemmer and all, and uh, Coach Davis, the football coach at Woodbridge, coaching the girls was just absolutely. I used to go watch his practices. They were incredible. He took soccer players, played the 2-2-1 press, and ran the flex offense every day. I mean, I really enjoyed watching them practice. Uh, uh, God rest his soul. He's passed now, but uh, and of course, right down the road at Potomac, tons of talent every year. I mean, those games were to die for. I'm
Mm.
I'm not gonna lie. It was just incredible experience. The only We got beat by 30 at Garfield with Kenny Scroggins and Jameer and all those guys, and we beat them on our court the last game of the season.
Mm.
Uh, uh, and that was I'll never forget that game because our principal was the greatest guy. Tom Gall was a great guy because he saw me in the hallway during it. He said, "Are we going to be able to win this game on Friday?" I said, "We're going to win." He said, "Sure we are." And so like he said, "You just got beat by 30." So I said, "No, we're gonna win the game." And he said, so he stopped me, Julian. He said, "I'll tell you what, if you win the game, I have a friend in Florida, and I'll get you in the tournament in Florida next year, and we'll go to Florida." And I said, okay, make arrangements. So during the course of the week, we walked past each other in the hallway and stuff. And he said, "So we're really gonna win, huh?" And I'm like, so we had things to do on the board. These are the things to do. So number one thing was Joe Weekland has to score 30. Joe scored 28.
Well,
We beat him in overtime.
yeah,
And we ended up going to Florida next year. But
yeah.
the rivalry was just incredible.
Mm.
Kendall was loaded at Potomac, every year. Um, we got to the point where we were really good. We started off, we didn't have the same kind of talent. And then as the years went on, our talent level improved. And now the three of us are like knocking each other upside the head, So Andy had a really talented team. Coach Bell actually had that group when I first got there.
That's right.
Uh,
Yeah.
and Kenny Scroggins and Shamira and
Skip Saunders.
Saunders,
Skip Saunders.
Skip, jump out the building, could shoot it like crazy. Uh, Kendall with his son Eric and um, Hawkins, BJ Hawkins.
Yeah.
Uh, oh man, I can't even name all the kids, man. And but yeah, great kids, great kids.
Yeah, that Garfield team is a great team that's forgotten by history because they never won the big game because they did have Scroggins who played at Union. They had Skip Saunders had a great career at UMBC.
You see,
They had a guy named Tabby Martin, I think, and then they had Jamel Perkins, who's a phenomenal ball handler.
went to George
Um, but
Mason. Yeah,
but then the Potomac, we know about all those great players. They won a state championship in '95. Some think one of the best high school teams in the history of Northern Virginia. That team was loaded with Mookie and I believe it was the player that went to Kentucky's freshman year. I believe what was his name with the great ball handling?
oh, the left-hander
Hawkins.
Hawkins.
Yeah, but yeah, Cliff Hawkins, right?
Yeah,
Was it Cliff Hawkins? Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah. But what made Kendall such a great coach? He was a charismatic guy, friendly guy, hard guy not to like. What was his key to his success in getting all those great players?
well, it starts with all of us getting good players.
Yeah, that's number one, right? Yeah,
Let's not fool ourselves.
yeah,
I don't think myself that much of a coach without
yeah.
without good players. Uh, um, I think all of us, we love the game as coaches. and we all knew that we had to be at our best in terms of game plan, implementation, teaching in order to beat the other. It wasn't going to be a cakewalk. Uh, and you had to have some little nuggets that you could count on that maybe you could get over. Like, can we get more free throws? Can we get more free throws than they? We're a better free throw shooting team. Uh, there were little strategies I know in our camp that we tried to carve out that if we could get an edge in this part of the game or that part of the game, then maybe we could be successful. Andy knew the game. Coach Bell let his players just go crazy. They was just running, play, and jump and be athletic as all get out. Andy came in, and Andy became more strategic. Um, Kendall was strategic in how he wanted to implement things. And plus, when I got Breon Dunlop at the point, and he's got Mookie, and we got really, really good guards. Everybody's got good guards, and that's what's helped win games. Uh, I don't know. I think all of us were so competitive uh, that if you were to watch our teams play, you could tell that there was a lot of time spent in preparation. Uh, because the games were never ugly games. They were always exciting games because kids played to their highest level
Mhm.
and not afraid
Mhm.
in front of packed houses. So I think that had a lot to do with. I know if I were to evaluate the other guys, that their preparation was top notch
And you guys had good relationships despite the bitter rivalries?
for the most part.
Yeah,
For
yeah,
the most part,
yeah. So coach, you end up coming to Charlotte. Was that a good move for you? And what is the basketball, the high school basketball scene like in Charlotte as compared to Northern Virginia and Cumberland?
I've been asked that question 1,000 times.
Mhm.
So I put it this way, and I've shared this with the people in Charlotte. In Northern Virginia, the overall, the athletes here, they're more athletes. The coaching is far superior in Northern Virginia.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking that. Yeah.
Yeah, because in Northern Virginia, the kids are getting coached at a really young age. Uh, Here, it's I don't think so much in terms of teaching fundamentals. It's more play, just play.
Mhm.
Uh, but kids in Northern Virginia get taught at a much younger age.
Mhm.
The talent level here is off the chain. Uh, at times, is absolutely incredible. The kid that's gone at IMG Academy out of Myers Park here, Sadiq, is committed to Syracuse. Uh, is probably the freakish athlete. Actually, his nickname is Sadiq the Freak.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah.
Athletes I've ever seen in my life.
Mhm.
He's 6'9". He can walk on air. He really doesn't have a good jump shot, and he really can't handle the ball.
Mhm.
I mean, he's still average 20 and 15.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Uh,
but you have there's a lot of talent here. Uh, uh, the young man who plays Isaiah Ingram plays for
mhm.
Duke, goes to high school right up the street here, North Mac High School.
Mhm.
North Mac is one I think just a couple weeks ago won that third or fourth state championship.
Tremendous shooter. Mhm.
Yeah, right. Uh, then even at our school, Vance, which is now called Julius Chambers, uh, there are quite a few of those kids now playing on, at UMass, Xavier. Uh,
Mhm.
got kids, my kid Torrin playing at NC State. We had a touch of Virginia Tech, Mississippi State. We've had kids go everywhere.
Mhm.
So the talent level is here.
Coach, is it different culturally than the rest of the South? Like in the rest of the South, football is king. I mean, Friday Night Lights is king, and I mean, lots of great basketball players from the South. I don't want to overstate that, but Carolina's always been a basketball state. It's always been, UNC, Duke, NC State, ACC basketball. Can you feel that in the type of athletes that you get? Like, more of your greater athletes gravitate to basketball rather than football at a young age.
Yeah, they do. However, there are pockets of school in areas in the state of North Carolina, like even here. So Mallard Creek High School is actually 6 minutes from my house, and Vance or Chambers is 6 minutes from my house. So I live smack dab between the two. Mallard Creek had two of their players playing in the Super Bowl
Wow.
this past. Their football program is incredible. So you have pockets of football programs in the state of North Carolina that are absolutely tremendous. But overall, basketball rules in the
Definitely.
state. Yeah.
And Charlotte is different than the Research Triangle, or is it the same kind of culture? Or do you feel like it's different?
Charlotte is a little bit different because of its urban
Hmm.
environment. Uh, North Carolina is not, you have Winston-Salem, you have Charlotte, you have small pockets of small cities or towns, but mostly rural. So Charlotte is considered, big city.
Yeah,
I call it a big country town.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, if I feel the way when I'm there, it's big, but it doesn't feel like a city. It's a different type of feel than most
Right.
cities that I've been
Absolutely.
in. And
Right.
you'll see like not a farm, but you feel like you're in a place like I'm in the middle of Charlotte. It's just it's a different feel than what I'm used to. Coach, you've done so much in basketball, with your work with the Olympic team and the U.S. team, and you worked with some NBA players, and you've won a lot of big games, and you've done it all. And you probably look back and you've probably forgotten a lot of the things that you've done. Is there anything left in basketball that you want to accomplish in particular, or do you just want to enjoy it as long as you can?
No, I never set out. I never had a goal to accomplish some of the things that I did.
Mhm.
I didn't ask to be. I didn't apply to coach the USA team, or didn't apply to work the NBA Players Association camp. I didn't any of those things. Those things were afforded to me, and which I'm so grateful today that I've had those experiences. I don't think there's anything. I don't think of anything that I feel like I missed out in basketball. Uh, I'm so thankful for all the experiences that I've had. Uh, Julian, I've been able to travel the world, South Africa, Sweden,
Mm.
France, all because of basketball. Um, and meet some unbelievable people to be able to work hand in hand with Kobe, uh, Steph. Uh, I mean, th- these Chris Paul, I mean, a lot of guys, man. To be able to be in the company of some great athletes and have had a chance to spend time with them, either working with them on the court or just the evening conversation. Uh, there's nothing that I would change. I enjoy today. I train today. I train kids, girls and boys. In fact, I just got the phone last night, getting ready to take on another little 12-year-old girl. Um, and that basketball is always going to be my passion. Um, and no, I've been blessed beyond measure. Uh, I've met, some of the greatest young men I've ever will ever come across. You being one of them.
Oh,
Uh,
thank you. Yeah.
uh, so I've always been a relational guy.
Mhm.
So my involvement with basketball has for me has been relational, and my relationship with our former players. And you hear you and I talking today. Uh, that means more to me than anything, than any championship that it could ever be accomplished. Uh, I share with my coaches, Julian, on my coaching staff, that your job as a coach is to win the war, not battles.
Mm.
The battles are championships along the way. You won a battle, you win another battle, you win another battle. But when those kids are 26 and 27 and moving into adulthood with families, if they're in your neighborhood and they don't contact you, you've lost the war.
Mm.
So it's about the impact that you have in people's lives. I think basketball affords you an opportunity to inspire someone's life. and you cannot miss out on that trying to win all these battles,
Mm,
right? So no, I've been blessed beyond measure,
yeah,
and I wouldn't change anything for all the money in the world.
yeah. Well, Coach, this has been great. I had lunch with Gary Austin, a great point guard that you had back in '84. We got together, and Gary had stayed at my house when you brought some after you guys whooped our butts at team camp. You brought some guys up, and you stayed with us for a week, and we got a chance to know him better. It was great. But Gary told me at the time that my father had an impact on him. He had never really met a wealthy. My dad was a military officer, and to
Right,
Gary, it felt wealthy. He'd never met an African American man wealthy like that, and it had an impact on his life. And
right,
it was interesting for me to hear him say that because he was just my dad. I never really thought about that. I probably took
right,
it for granted, even though I love my dad. But I have to say, you had the same impact on me. I had never met a coach that was so passionate about the game, uh, that was such a great inspirer of young players to be better. We were around you. We just wanted to suck everything you had, knowledge you had in. You took so much time to teach us about the game. You played with it. You were a brutal competitor. I mean, we were young, but you didn't have any problem in beating us in basketball and putting us in our place. But you had an impact on us. I don't think any of the things that happened to Sean and Mike at Robinson after I left and they went to state, and I don't think I ever would have made the JV team at UVA without you. You really affected the way I played basketball, the way I coached basketball. Some of the things I taught my kids. You once told me something, Coach. You said, Julian, when you're at a gym, I don't want you to leave that gym so everyone in that gym knows that you were there. You remember telling me that?
right. I do. Right,
You told me
right,
that. I've used that line so many times. I said to my kids, we go AAU tournament or a YBOA tournament. We're playing these gyms with all these athletes and everyone's looking at us and laughing. I said, when we leave this gym, they're going to know exactly who we are. Everyone in that gym. Don't be anonymous. Make sure
that's
when you
right,
leave that gym, they knew you were there. And
right.
I got that from you. So, you had a big impact on my life. And I'm so glad we got a chance to do this. And hopefully we can do a better job keeping in touch from here on in.
Yeah, yeah. Let's do that. Let's do
Yeah.
that. This
So,
has been great.
yeah.
You all have again. You all etched in stone in my life forever. That experience. Uh, I'm a guard guy, so
Yeah.
I gravitate towards good guards. Uh, but as people, that is most important to me. The type of people that you all have become, and that means more to me than any basketball ever. So that's what I cherish most about my experience with basketball.
Yeah. Well, Coach, that's great. Thanks again for the compliment, and thanks for all you did to inspire me and all my friends. And look, let's do this again. Maybe at some point I can get you and a bunch of the old coaches on, and we can reminisce about the old games together.
I would love to do that. That'd be great.
Yeah, I'd love to get you and Kendall on. We could talk about that rivalry you guys used to have.
No, that'd be awesome. That would
Yeah,
be awesome.
that'd be great.
Yeah.
All right, Coach. Great seeing you. Thanks for doing this.
Thanks, Julian. I
All right, buddy.
appreciate you.
It's been
Take
great,
care,
man. You
man.
too, man. All
All right.
right, take it.